So, this is a response, part 2 to Cosmic Skeptic. Sorry, the camera's gonna go up and down. I'm trying to make sure it stays in one place. But anyway, so Cosmic Skeptic, he basically made a response, as you guys know, to one of my videos. And I decided to break up my responses into small little parts. So in this short video, what I want to do, inshallah, God willing, is basically explain the way he's speaking about human rights does not actually make sense if what he says about human rights is what he means. Okay, so that's a bit of a mouthful, so what exactly am I saying? So I'm going to embed in this video when he was actually speaking about human rights during the debate with Muhammad Hijab.
And if the argument is that everything that begins to exist has some kind of cause, and so the universe must have some kind of cause, well, everything that begins to exist is the universe. So when you say everything that begins to exist needs a cause, you're just saying the universe needs a cause. And the conclusion is, of course, that the universe has a cause. And that's the definition of a circular argument. Now, that's the first point. The second thing I'd like to do, I'm not sure how long I've been up here now, I haven't got a good track on time. How long? 5 minutes, okay, so about halfway through. So let me put to you some of the things that I was thinking of putting forward. Did I not have anything to respond to in the propositions case? I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of discussion of metaphysics this evening. There's going to be a lot of discussion of arguments for the existence of God, the existential arguments, let's call them. And so I wanted to take a brief moment to bring up what might seem like an irrelevancy, but is certainly not. Islam teaches that there is an objective basis to morality in the world. That when you say something is right or wrong, that is a true statement, and that's as true as something like the proposition that the Earth orbits the Sun. It is a matter of fact. And that means that part of the reality that we're trying to describe with the Islamic worldview is moral realism. There have to be moral truths that are as real as the metaphysical claims that it's making. And what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you find moral claims within the doctrines of Islam that you don't agree with, then you don't agree with Islam. So I want to consider some of the moral elements of this religion.
So as you guys can see, what he's basically saying is that he moves from trying to show why Islam doesn't make sense in terms of reality, metaphysically, straight away to the moral domain. Now clearly, the metaphysical world, in which the claims are being made from the atheist and the theist side, is referring to things about which there's a fact of the matter, things which are objective and verifiable and truth claims essentially. So he moves from metaphysics to morals, and he's speaking about human rights. And why Islam, he believes, is wrong because it challenges certain moral norms. If that's true, then in his actual response to me, he admitted that human rights do not actually exist. So how does he reconcile these two contradictory views? One in which he's talking about human rights as if you break those things, that Islam is morally wrong, in the same way it's going to be wrong if it's wrong in terms of metaphysics. And yet at the same time, he's speaking about it as if, human rights are purely subjective and they're social constructs, and we basically create them ourselves for a particular end. In fact, I'm going to just embed what he says in his response.
So all I can really know, morally speaking, is that my own pleasure is good for me. I enjoy it. Pleasure is an experienced phenomenon and feels good by definition. Right, from this, I can't derive a list of rights and laws that objectively exist. But I do know that if I live in a stable society with such rights and laws, my pleasure will be maximized overall, compared to living in an arbitrary state that isn't bound to a stable system of law. Again, the rights don't exist, except as useful concepts to achieve the moral end of maximizing pleasure. So even if legal principles like innocence until proven guilty, or yes, human rights, don't actually exist, don't exist as objective ontological principles, it still makes sense for me to talk about them and treat them as though they exist, and design society in such a way that treats them like they exist, because doing so maximizes pleasure. And this pleasure is a moral faculty that does actually exist. When the person in this video says he doesn't understand why atheists talk as though these things exist, he's actually more accurate than he thinks, right? We don't talk about these things because we think they exist. We treat them as though they exist, because that's what leads to a better society. We don't need to believe in some kind of ontological principle that actually exists behind them. We just need to believe that acting as though there is such a principle leads to a better society, and therefore we implement them into our moral and legal compass.
So clearly, these two things contradict each other. You can't speak about morality as if it has the same sort of the same sort of power that you're speaking about on a metaphysical claim in terms of Islam being wrong. You can't just switch like you did in the debate from one to the other and then at the same time try and maintain that morality. The guy just parked behind me. Oh, he's going. Okay. That morality is purely subjective. You can't actually have both of those things. You have to either say, bite the bullet and say, all right, so morals are purely social constructs and, we should just put forward moral sort of ideas which maximize pleasure. In that case, what he should have done in the debate with hijab is he should have said, do you know what? I don't agree with the Islamic morals because they don't maximize pleasure. I still believe them to be subjective. What he shouldn't have done is spoke about them in his opening in a way of disproving Islam. Because if you want to disprove Islam, you have to use something objective. So I hope in this short video, I have explained how there's a contradiction between the way that Cosmic actually uses moral norms and to try and challenge Islam, and at the same time he is basically admitting that morals, ethics, human rights, all of these things are purely social constructs to help us maximize pleasure. So this is part 2 of my response to Alex, and inshallah, God willing, I'll be making a few more videos.